Thanks, Amaya. And first of all, let me welcome you. And she said a lunch might be stretching the term lunch to call what we gave you a lunch here. I hope it tied you over until you can actually go to lunch. Let me just say thanks for being here and tell you how excited we are. We've been preparing for about 6 months with committee work and doing listening sessions and going around the country listening to different groups, trying to get as much input and as much advice and new ideas as we possibly could. And so now the time's come. We're here. And we're really excited. We're going to have 3.5 days, and I think a great convention with a lot of energy, a lot of people getting to be here that weren't here before. But then the real work starts. Our goal is not to have anything end here at the convention, but actually the work begins after we leave here to make real all the wonderful things that we're going to talk about, all the inclusiveness that we're talking about here. It'll be hard work to make it real. Getting legislation, getting comprehensive immigration reform, ending mass incarceration, all of those things that we'll be talking about here are going to work to make them real. And it's going to take some effort and a lot of work with a lot of our allies and our partners, and we're excited about it. So having said that, I'll just open it up and you guys can start throwing. Yeah.
Pedro Baez, KPFK. President Trumka, how close are we to seeing the reality of the Employee Free Choice Act become the law of the land?
Well, Pedro, I'd like to say the president's going to sign it tomorrow, but that's not going to happen. We're going to have to do some work on that. We have a group of people in the House and in the Senate that are very, very anti-worker, anti-union. They've waged a campaign against America's workers and America's unions and our progressive allies over a long period of time. They've not only assaulted us, they've assaulted the institution of democracy, trying to make it harder for people to vote, trying to take away collective bargaining from people. And so we'll continue to work on it, and hopefully within my term, if I'm fortunate enough to get reelected, we can make it a reality. We won't stop trying, because as you know, the labor laws in this country are very, very antiquated, and two, they don't protect working people any longer.
Just one other thing I want to say.
Can we at least follow the first rule and keep it to one question? Josh Idelson, right there. Go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. Josh Idelson from The Nation. There's a perception among various folks that have studied the labor movement or are in organized labor that within your term, the percentage of the AFL-CIO that goes to workplace policy has gone down, and the percentage that goes to elections and policy has gone up. Is that correct? And are we going to see any change in prioritization?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's correct. We've been looking at campaigns on a number of different levels. In order for workers to succeed, in order for workers to have a voice, they have to have a voice at the workplace. They have to have a voice in the economy. They have to have a voice in American politics. We're trying to do all three of those things. We're trying to create an environment where those workers that really want to have a union can have a union. We're trying to create an environment where we join together with our progressive friends to create an economy that doesn't just work for the top 1%, but works for all workers. We call it shared prosperity. You will be seeing us reaching out over the next several years and educating not only union members about the economy and what we can do to get out of it, but also educating our progressive allies, people that don't yet have a union, people that agree with us on values but really aren't part of they don't have a collective bargaining agreement yet. So it takes all three of those, and we try to work at all three of those, and we will continue to work at all three of those. We haven't given up the least on traditional organizing. We'll continue to do that and try to create, like I said, an environment where it's possible for workers to have a voice in all three of those things.
And we'll take another. Sorry, go ahead. I think we have somebody on the phone. Sorry, we can't hear your question on the phone. If you can speak up.
President Trump, you recently made a statement about the deportation crisis. Are you specifically calling for a moratorium on deportation while the immigration reform that's being debated in Congress. And recently also, Senator Feinstein in California.
Yeah, you only get one, Kevin, because I can't keep up with more than one question. It is? Okay.
It's a moratorium on I-9 audit, which is the other enforcement arm of the immigration administration. In other words, so-called silent raid. Are you calling for a moratorium on the silent raid they've left to the deportation of the firing of so many workers, including union members?
Did everybody hear that? The question is, well, let me repeat it. I couldn't even hear you. That's not your fault. That's technology, I guess, or the lack thereof. He asked me if we are calling for a moratorium on deportation during the hiatus period or while we're trying to pass comprehensive immigration reform. And the answer to that is yes, we are. I have, and I continue to do that. Let me go back to the First World War. In the First World War, the armistice was signed at about 6 o'clock in the morning. And it wasn't supposed to take effect until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And in that 5-hour period, or 6-hour period during that period of time, word wasn't really conveyed to all of the people that led the troops on either side, and they began fighting. And over 7,000 Americans were killed and Allied troops were killed between the signing of the armistice and the time that it actually officially took place. That to me was a tremendous waste of humanity and a tragic mistake for this country. The same situation exists here, where we have passed comprehensive immigration reform at the Senate. We're fighting to do that, and to continue to divide families, to continue to have people live in fear of coming home and your dad or your mother's not there anymore, knowing that in a few months when we do pass comprehensive immigration reform, they're going to have a path to citizenship. To me, seems the wrong way for us to go as a country. So the answer is yes.
Next question.
The silent raid, President Trumka.
Sorry, can we come back to you on the phone and take somebody from the room in the middle? Right here.
Thanks. You said that
Can you
you're gonna be
say?
working-
Can you
Oh,
please
sorry,
say your name and
David
where you're
Dang
from? Thanks.
Salon.com.
Okay.
You said that you were going to be working with some progressive allies on various organizing campaigns. There's one coming up that a campaign has started around opposition to Larry Summers for Federal Reserve Chair. Is the AFL going to get involved in that, and what form will that take?
We're not going to get involved in a campaign against anybody. I mean, I've stated a few times that if you look at the facts, if you look at who we think is most qualified, we think that Janet Yellen has earned the right to head the Federal Reserve. One, she understands that the Federal Reserve's had two jobs. One is to fight inflation, the other is to seek full employment. The last several Federal Reserve chairmen have not remembered their two-pronged test. They only remembered fighting inflation. When you look at the advice that was given or the predictions that were made or those that were able to see the coming crisis with the banking crisis, Janet Yellen was out in front and she was right on every one of those things. We think that she would be a tremendous Federal Reserve chairman.
David?
David Moberg in these times. In some of your remarks before the convention, you've talked about strengthening the progressive coalition, and there are at least a couple sets of criticisms I've heard. One is that this is sort of continuation of business as it has been in the past and not all that big a departure. And the other is that we don't want to have coalition with groups that are, in some cases, anti-worker, radical environmentalists or otherwise not reliable partners for labor.
Well,
You want to address those?
First of all, I don't know if
criticisms?
everybody heard David's question. Y'all are going to have to speak up a little louder. David said he's heard some criticism about us wanting to work in coalition with other people. The first criticism was, we've done it before, you shouldn't do it again, which to me hardly seems like a criticism, David. The second thing is, well, how are you going to get in league with people that you disagree with? Well, I'm married to a lovely lady that sometimes we disagree, but we've been able to make a marriage work. And look, here's what I know. And I think everybody that sits around our executive council knows this and has stated this. We're in a crisis right now. And none of us are big enough to change that crisis. None of us are big enough to change the economy and make it work for everybody. It takes all progressive voices working together. And will we disagree from time to time? Of course we will disagree from time to time. But we want to transform our relationship with our progressive friends and allies from transactional to transformational, so that we can withstand the issues that we disagree on and still be able to work for a common goal of an economy that works for the 99%. We can work for job creation, good jobs, a voice on the job, a voice in our political action or in politics today. All of those things are there. Is it going to be challenging? Of course it's going to be challenging. But we plan to do things a little differently. You know, what we did, thanks. What we did, what we used to do is we would get a plan and we would go to our progressive allies and say, here's our plan, sign off. And sometimes that worked, and most of the time it didn't work. Our goal right now is to try to go to our progressive allies and say, here's a problem. It's a joint problem. Let us both create a plan. Let us jointly create a plan and a strategy, and then let us jointly educate, mobilize, and execute to fix this together. And I think when we do that and we are able to get all of our progressive friends and allies together, we are the vast majority in this country. Not the minority, not a fringe group, but the vast majority. So I'm sort of excited about it. A lot of people are excited about it. Our friends and allies are excited about it. And, you know, I don't think, well, even when Christ was born, there were people that disagreed with him and were naysayers. And I don't expect that's what makes a democracy go.
May I ask a question from the phone, please?
Wow.
Go ahead on the phone.
Yes, this is Jutta Hinnig from Inside U.S. Trade. I was wondering about the resolution, the proposed resolution on the global economy. America and the world need a new approach to trade and globalization. In that, you're expected to adopt that this week, it talks about the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and if it appears poised to promote the rights of the 1%, you're talking about devoting resources to create a national campaign against it. Could you elaborate a little more on what you expect to do on TPP, and would you expect to start this after this convention or wait until there's an actual agreement?
No, I think we've already started increasing our ability to mobilize at our central labor councils and our state feds so that we can mobilize around any issue. So that process began about 6 months ago. It continues as we speak, and it will continue out into the future. Building the structure in our central labor councils and state feds so that we can take on any issue. Look, when I go and I start thinking about trade, everybody, even the architects, excuse me, the chief architects of the original trade regime have now said it hasn't worked. I mean, Bill Clinton brought us NAFTA, and we were given a whole bunch of promises about NAFTA, none of which came to fruition. Bill Clinton now says it didn't work. We need a different regime. So we're pushing this administration to do a different trade regime, a trade regime that does actually work for everybody and not for corporate America or the financial world. And if it doesn't, if what they come out with doesn't give us a different regime or doesn't protect workers, then yes, we will oppose it. And when I say oppose it, we will try to do a campaign that's nationwide. That we start talking to our friends, our allies, we start mobilizing, we start educating, and we bring people to the polls to do what we have to do to defeat another bad trade agreement.
John,
Excuse me, can you just,
we're gonna take
you
one.
called state labor, can you just repeat
Sorry,
your
on the
name?
phone.
When you talked about we've already started this process, we've mobilized, what is it, the state?
Hi, on the
labor-
phone. We're gonna take another question from the room and then we'll come back to the phone. And can we keep it to one question per reporter, please? I'm just asking you guys kindly. John, go ahead.
John Wojcik, People's World. Actually, there's been a drop, we all know.
There's what?
There's been a drop, as we all know, in union membership. Membership is rather low. You guys have explained consistently and very understandably that a lot of that is due to these attacks on the labor movement. But recently you've been saying that you point the finger at yourselves, that the labor movement itself is taking some of the blame. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, I had a 7th grade teacher who always told me every time you point the finger at somebody, there's always 3 pointing back at you. And I think about that a lot. You know, whenever I analyze what we've done, I have to ask ourselves, have we done everything right? And the answer is no. Have we devoted the resources, the organizing that we absolutely could, the maximum? The answer is no. So we haven't done everything right. And we have to look inward and correct those problems as well as looking outward. Now, we can still do everything right, and with the laws the way they are, they can still deny workers a voice on the job. And with the Supreme Court being the best champion of corporate America and equating money with dollars, you can be denied the voice in politics. You can deny the right to vote even. And so we're working hard on all those things. I just, you know, I want to look at ourselves and correct everything that we can internally, and then look externally and say these are also out there. I just don't think that we do have to look at ourselves, and I think we have to do that on a continuous basis. And if anything comes out of this convention, I hope it is that we look and embrace change, and we can say to ourselves, we're going to continue to analyze ourselves and change as we need to change.
Gender equity and questioning. Go ahead.
Thank you. Lauren Windsor with the Undercurrent, the Young Turks. Given your response just now to his question in the failure of unions in progressive coalitions, and also with corporations having the upper hand in politics with all the money, I work with Money Out Voters In and the burgeoning
You
movement.
what?
I work with Money Out Voters In and the burgeoning movement to get money out of politics through a constitutional amendment. Given that you filed an amicus brief in support of Citizens United, but then 2 years later told the Ithaca Journal that it was a corrupting influence and really decried that position, what are you going to do to reverse that and make good on that past
Well,
mistake?
let's set the record straight first, because while you are entitled to your opinion, you're not necessarily entitled to your own facts. Yes, we filed an amicus, but what was it geared towards? Making sure that unions weren't treated differently than any other group. We also said, and we have continued to say, yes, we ought to get money out of politics. That money doesn't equal free speech. I do not believe that Jefferson and Hamilton were sitting around a table and one of them looked at the other and said, you know, Tom, I have $1,000 and you only have $100. That means I get 10 times more free speech than you. I don't think that was the intent. So we're going to work as best we can to try to rectify that. It may take a constitutional amendment, because this Supreme Court, as currently constituted, equates money with free speech. And that fundamental difference prevents virtually any kind of meaningful legislation from happening. That means we'll continue to have a system that is polluted with money.
I do want to clarify. I was
Can we please keep it to one question, please? Let me get to Alex.
Alex Politico. President Trumka, when you're talking about a more robust, sort of self-conscious and progressive movement, you're talking about potential disputes within the sort of liberal coalition about trade. How do you see the relationship between the AFL and the Democratic Party changing and evolving over the next couple of years?
Well, you know, there are many representatives in the Democratic Party who are friends of labor. There are some that are acquaintances of labor, and there are some that are really, I guess, less than acquaintances. We're going to continue to work with our friends, and by the way, we have a whole lot more friends in the Democratic Party than we do on the Republican side. So we're going to continue to work with people, candidates that support us. We will not be in the pocket of any party. We will be an independent voice for workers, and when they are right, we will support them, and when we think they are not right, we will not support them.
Yeah, President Obama, Steve Zeltzer, KPFA Radio, President Obama has said that he's not going to be able to attend the convention due to what's going on in Congress and getting support for that. Apparently, the majority of American people, including working people, are opposed to the attack on Syria. What is your position, the AFL-CIO's position on this issue of the bombing or the attack on Syria?
You know, look, we haven't taken one yet because we haven't had enough of the facts to be able to draft a comprehensive position. Here's what I do know. I know that there are over 100,000 people killed in Syria, and I know that each and every one of them was a tragedy. I know that there are almost 2 million immigrants right now that are being forced out of their homes, and I know the international community is not responding effectively enough to help those people. And we want to focus on making sure that those people that have been forced out of their homes get humane treatment. We also believe that the use of chemical weapons or any type of weapons like that against your own people is a deplorable act. We will continue to gather facts, we will continue to talk, and our Executive Council will debate that and ultimately make a decision on it. We have not yet.
Yeah.
Well, that was basically my question, but so do you not expect there to be a resolution on Syria at this convention?
I don't think so, because we don't have enough of the background and enough of the facts yet.
Melanie Trotman with the Wall Street Journal. President Trump, you said recently that you expect the new labor secretary to be more aggressive and focused than his predecessor, whom you complimented. I'm wondering if you could just be more specific about how you want to see that happen, and whether or not you think business and labor can really work together cooperatively to result in the kind of regulation that you want to see.
There's a lot of questions wound up there, Mel. Tom Perez, if you look at his record, he has always been an aggressive prosecutor of sterling integrity and impeccable credentials, and I expect him to do that. And I'm talking about enforcing the law as it is, and then looking for holes that exist in the law and filling them. For instance, I expect him to go full speed ahead on the silica regulations. People are dying every day because of silicosis, and I expect him to go forward on all of those things. He is, I think his record has shown it, a person who will stand up. Can we cooperate with business? Yeah, those businesses that give us or understand our legitimate right to exist, absolutely. But if a business doesn't exist, doesn't think you have a legitimate right to exist, it's kind of tough to cooperate with those folks. Look, I've reached out as far as I go. Tom Donahue and I are working on infrastructure together. We worked on immigration reform together. You know, I'd like to say he'd work on labor law reform with me, but his idea of labor law reform and mine would be a whole lot different. So, you know, to the extent that we can, we will. Look, I really believe that the more we can, the better off we are. And I believe there are a number of businesses out there that really do understand the importance of their workers, that they're assets to be invested in, not costs to be cut. Those employers will reach out a hand and will work, and I think they'll succeed. When we've been able to set up labor management cooperative programs, they've been able to knock down the competition because you unleash the full potential of an employee by saying, I want your brain as well as your hands and your back. So the answer is we'll try.
Do we have any questions on the phone?
I just wanted to clarify about the state labor council.
Okay, can we come back to you and take somebody new from in the room? Kevin?
Hey, Kevin Bogardus from the Hill newspaper. Thanks for doing this, President Trumka. President Obama's not coming tomorrow, but he's at least doing a video message. What do you think he should say? Do you think he should address some of labor's concerns about the Affordable Care Act? And do you think, will we see some kind of resolution here during the convention that will address those concerns, speak to those concerns about the Affordable Care Act?
In terms of what?
Labor's concerns about the Affordable Care Act. Will we see a resolution come out of this convention?
I think we'll probably talk about health care at this convention, yeah. I think it'll talk about all facets and our concerns about it. I think it will. You know, look, the president was put in a no-win situation. And he called and said he felt bad about not being able to come. And I empathize with him. But I know that if he had come out here, the right wing would have blasted him for not being in D.C. working on Syria. And he takes his responsibility seriously, and I think he'll deliver a message to workers saying that he supports workers having a voice on the job. He supports the right to unionize, that he will work with us to create jobs and good jobs that support families. And I don't know what else he'll say. I didn't get to write the speech. I would have liked to. There's a couple of things I would have liked for him to say.
Like what?
Sorry, we're going to take a couple more and then try to wrap it up.
Richard, Steve Early, TNG, CWA member covering the convention for labor notes. I want to go back to the labor management cooperation question. What's the state of the Federation's partnership with Kaiser Permanente, which has begun today? The last 2 years, two of the largest anti-concession strikes in the country been directed at Kaiser. San Francisco city workers are in a big fight with them right now about rate increases. The state of California just fined Kaiser $4 million for its mental health care deficiencies. A case opened by union whistleblowers. A lot of unfair labor practices by Kaiser in the last couple of years around workers switching unions. Have you intervened with the management of Kaiser about any of these labor or consumer concerns? And if they haven't been responsive, why are they here being showcased as a model employer?
Well, first of all, there's been a Kaiser Permanente partnership for some time, and many of the unions have worked through that. Does that mean it's perfect and there aren't problems? No, it doesn't mean that. And by the way, Steve, your information is dated. Kaiser won't be here at this convention.
Just going by what's on the schedule.
Can we go Laura in the back, and then we'll actually Laura, and then David, and then we'll wrap it up. Go ahead.
A lot of miners, retired miners, found themselves working for the Patriot coal company, have lost their health care, guaranteed health care that they promised. And that company, which looks like a shell, created to do this, declared bankruptcy. What can the labor movement do to stop major companies dumping their pension responsibilities by creating a shell?
I don't know if anybody heard you, but I know what you're talking about, Laura. So let me just frame out what's happening. It's called Patriot Coal. In the coal industry, like in a lot of industries, employers are looking for ways to dump their legacy costs. They make promises to workers over a 20, 30, 40-year period, and then they want to get rid of those promises, forget about them after workers are, one, too old to go back and do it again and have no other means of doing it. This is a particularly egregious situation because you had Peabody Coal's been in existence for over 100 years. So they've been producing coal and making money for over 100 years, and they got a lot of people that retired from Peabody. And then you had another company by the name of Arch Minerals. And Arch Minerals has been around for 70, 80 years, and they made a whole lot of money at coal, and they had a whole lot of retirees. So those two companies merged, and they look at their legacy costs and they say, gee, it would be nice to get rid of this. What they did was they created a shell company called Patriot Coal. Patriot Coal, then they put nearly all, not all, but nearly all of their pensioners into Patriot Coal, gave it a cost structure that they knew couldn't exist and couldn't survive, undercapitalized the company, and said, okay, you're on your own. And of course, Patriot does exactly what they knew it would do. They went bankrupt. They declared bankruptcy. So then they say, too bad, you're out of luck. We don't have to give you health care. Well, due to some great work by my successor, Cecil Roberts, and the mine workers, they were able to improve things. Oh, wait a second, before I get to that. The next thing that happens in cases, you go to bankruptcy court, and the first thing that happens is the bankruptcy court looks at the workers and said, this is my chance to give them a haircut. Everybody else, all the other creditors say, oh yeah, take it away from the workers, because that means you're not taking it away from me. That means I'll get more if they get less. And so the bankruptcy rules in this country are absolutely broken and need to be fixed. And one of the things we plan to do is go after those bankruptcy rules. Now, it's not just in the private sector anymore, because you had Detroit just do the same thing with public workers in the public sector. And they talked about these outrageous pensions. Those pensions were averaged about $19,000 a year. And I'd like to see a whole bunch of the people that called them outrageous live on $19,000 a year. That's right. I'd like to see them do it. They couldn't do it. Now this is in the public sector, and we're going to fight it. And we're going to ultimately, I think, prevail and stop them from taking away the pensions of people that sacrifice wage increases over the years, gave it up so that they could have health care and a pension, and now you say, we were just kidding. We're taking away your health care and away your pension. The bankruptcy laws in this country are broken. They are stacked against workers. They are being used in a way that no one ever intended them to be used. And we intend to go after those bankruptcy laws and start educating the public, educating leaders, and actually trying to get them changed.